We are now going live on Wake Up Africa. Good morning, Africa. This is the 10th episode of Wake Up Africa, and today, in a very special way, I would like to start by an apology. We are about 17 minutes late, but we are here to start. This is Wake Up Africa today, and we are looking onto the SME today. We are looking onto how we can help the SME sector to move from micro to small, small to medium, and medium to large. So the topic for today says most African businesses fail to grow from micro to small, from small to medium, and so forth, for so many reasons. We can mention a number of reasons why businesses do not grow from micro to small, small to medium, medium to large, for a number of reasons. Now, most African governments have done a lot to ensure that the businesses grow and thrive. And here we are today looking on to, despite the efforts that the governments have put across all the African countries, we still have we still see that most businesses are struggling in Africa. Now we are looking on to the factors that really make businesses in Africa fail to transform. This is Wake Up Africa, and I'm celebrating everyone in Africa that is up this morning and joining us to really be there and share their thoughts, their insights as onto what needs to be done now so that things are different. What needs to be done now so that businesses can grow? And as the business grow, the economies grow. As the economies grow, boom, Africa grows. As Africa grows, we're now able to tell the world and show the world that really Africa is doing everything it can do to help its economy, to help its people, and hence this is how we change the narration. A lot is really happening in Africa. A lot is yet to happen in Africa, but looking on to the SME sector in Africa, the SME sector, as broad as it is, first and foremost, it employs the largest number of people in Africa. Across Africa, most people are involved in small and medium businesses. So, as people are in the small and medium businesses, what does that entail? That shows that more people are able to contribute largely to the economies. More people are able to contribute largely to the economies. Looking on to where Wake Up Africa is coming from this morning, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, this beautiful city in Africa. We have quite a number of SMEs, but borrowing from our neighbors, Kenyans, and I'm hoping that Patricia Ndede will be able to join us all the way from Kenya this morning. We'll also attest that yes, Kenya is doing very well. I think the SME sector in Kenya is contributing close to 80% of their GDP. But Patricia Ndede will join us and tell us how that is going on out in Kenya. But we'll also, excuse me, we'll also be able to learn from Rwanda and Burundi what are they doing in their country in terms of seeing the SME sector growing from one point to the other. But voila, looking on to Uganda, unfortunately, Alan Sube will not be able to join us today. We miss you, Alan. But again, I will share some insights from Uganda. Now, critically, looking onto the SME in Africa, these are critical to Africa's economic growth. This is, where it all starts. Critical to Africa's economic growth, representing a large portion of businesses and employment, but face challenges like access to finance, infrastructure deficiencies, and regulatory hurdles. When you look onto the SME in Africa, why is it that it can't move from one point to the other? Some of the factors that came across are quite number of people that share their thoughts are access to finance. Now, why do we need SMEs to access finance? We need them to access finance for many reasons. One, if you want to expand your business in Africa, you have to have finance. Expanding business, you need money. For instance, you're now in Tanzania, you want to go to Rwanda or Burundi or South Africa or Kenya or Namibia, you have to have the capital to help you expand your business. If you want to expand your markets, you've got to go on to research and development to see where my markets are for these products. That needs money. If you want to expand your business line, also requires money. This is why SMEs in Africa need to access finance, not only in Africa, across the globe, but since our focus for Wake Up Africa 10th episode is how now can we ensure that SMEs migrate from micro to small, small to medium, medium to large. The need for finance is huge. Now, we'll speak later on how the SMEs can be supported to get the finances. But again, looking onto the infrastructure, they produce items, but they cannot penetrate into the markets. Most products that we produce, being an agricultural economy across many African countries, are perishable. Perishable goods need to hit the market right onto the next minute. The moment you stay with them, the moment they get bad. How do they get bad? How do you not then access the markets? The road infrastructure, not so good in Africa, but that does not stop us from accessing our market. That does not stop us from thinking critically. If I want to start my business now, where should that business be starting at? Should I start it in a remote area where the raw materials are, or should I get the raw materials, come, and then do the business where I am? But regulatory hurdles. It's interesting, and I keep on mentioning this every time I have a platform to mention that you bring investors into the country, any country whatsoever, and you give them tax holidays. But those local businesses that want to start onto your countries do not have tax holidays. The moment you register a business, the moment you're asked to start paying taxes. Now, regulatory hurdles also include what kind of business do you want to start? Then you have to be seen, or you already have to start paying a lot of taxes, a lot of levies towards ensuring or towards seeing that business just start. Okay. Now, these are more things that we need to look onto. The economic engine. What do we mean by that? SMEs are the backbone of Africa's economy. Okay, Africa being an agricultural, mostly agricultural economy, not looking onto other sectors we have like tourism, um, um, looking onto mining, fishing, etc. But looking onto agriculture as the backbone of Africa's economy, and SMEs being the backbone now that supports agriculture, accounting for over 90% of businesses and employing a significant portion of the workforce, including many women and many young people. And we should call to mind that Africa is mostly a youthful population. Now, SMEs in Africa are an economic engine. They employ over 90% of the workforce, mostly women and mostly youth. Now, the emphasis here is why women and why youth, because they are the majority in the continent. Okay, so we are proud that the SME has a lot of more people. This is the 90% of people in Africa. 90% of people in Africa in the employed or are taken by the SME. But again, looking onto SME and the role it plays, it again creates jobs. Think of a food vendor on your street. Okay, a food vendor on your street has someone who comes to help him or her do one or two. These are jobs that have been created. Think of carpenters. Think of all these other small and medium jobs. The shops, the boutiques, saloon. They have quite a number of people that are employed. Now, if the SME sector is suddenly disconnected, poop, cut. Look at how many jobs, how many people will be impacted by that action. So SMEs are a major driver of job creation and income generation, contributing to poverty reduction and economic growth. So kudos to all those who just work very hard to create jobs. Kudos to all those who are working so hard to making sure that your products or services are out there and they act either as finished products or raw materials to other businesses, because this is how jobs are created. But again, SMEs in Africa operate across various sectors, including agriculture. I did mention it earlier. We have manufacturing, we have services, we have technology, making them significant contributors to employment and agents for poverty reduction. Okay. Again, the word poverty comes time and time. Yes, we are being depicted. Yes, we are not there yet. But because of the 90% of the SME's contribution in the region, 90% of workforce in Africa is into the SME, we are now able to see the sectoral contribution, the SMEs that play in agriculture, fisheries, livestock keeping, manufacturing, service industries. Yeah, we have tour guides doing lots of good work. We have people helping in so many ways, giving different directions here and there, different support, different services. You know, they contribute to the growth, the GDP, as well as poverty reduction. But again, I did mention earlier the contribution of SMEs in the GDP, the contribution of SMEs in GDP for a country like Kenya. I think 80, I tend to be corrected, but as soon as Patricia joins, she will be able now to tell. But I think 80% of GDP, Kenya's GDP, is from the SMEs. Okay. Now, you may be wondering, but I know you already know that SMEs' contribution to the GDP, GDP is what drives the country's economy. Okay, so the contributions that come from GDP are the ones that are given out to different ministries to perform different functions. There you go. So in some countries, SMEs contribute a substantial portion of their GDP, highlighting their importance to the overall economy. Voila. They highlight their importance to the overall economy. Now, how do we then, going back onto the topic of today, how do we then ensure that the SME sector remains pivotal to the growth of the economy in Africa as we change the narratives of Africa? Now, we highlighted three factors. We highlighted earlier on three factors, one being finance. Okay. So, to as far as finance is concerned, finance, the banks in Africa need to really think critically on developing products that suit the demands of the SME sector. You know, sometimes, and having a background in the banking sector, it keeps me wondering. You know, we have in our banks, in our deposits, lots and lots of cash. But banks are not meant to store cash. Okay, banks need to make money, invest money, aid businesses. The more the money is out there, the more the returns into the bank, the more they're able to put interest returns to those who have invested their money in the bank. But if this is not happening, then what is happening? Now, the microfinance, the finance sector in Africa really needs to look onto the SME sector critically. Yes, they do not have financial literacy. Yes, they do not have records. Yes, they do not know. But if you invested as banks heavily on ensuring that SMEs are capacitated to now be able to keep the records that you want, to demonstrate their ability on the finance. Okay, how do they use the finances once you give them to, you know, keep record, keep books, do returns, do filing, etc. How then would they not be able to meet the demands you have for them to access the loans and for you as banks to grow? SMEs need money, businesses need financing. Okay. And you are sitting on piles and piles and piles of finances. I would, you know, be glad if at the end of the year, financial year, the banks report negative balances. Where's the rest? Where's all the money? All the entire money is into the 90% of the SME out there in Africa doing businesses, growing that money. Once the money is well circulated, we all know it grows. But once the money is confined within few hands or in the banks, how does it grow? I call to you, the finance sector, to really look onto it critically and say, hey, by the way, yes, we need to have money out there. Money needs to go into the circulation. Other than that, here we are. Nothing is happening. I am looking onto factor number two, which is infrastructure. Governments are putting lots of resources. For me, allow me to comment on the great efforts that have been done by my president in Tanzania, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan. You know, we have very good road networks, we have railways, we have aircraft, you know, but I'm now recalling how many of us do businesses using these facilities. Again, back in Tanzania, again, a call to all investors watching this show. With the standard gauge railway that Tanzania has, you know, recently started using heavily, we have now brought into the country the cargo rail. Okay, that we are now able to shift through the standard gauge the cargo from whichever part that the SGR passes. What does that mean? We need to now leverage on movement of goods, movement of raw materials, movement of finished product using the railway. Okay. In most countries, we've had the railway that were built by the colonialists back in the days. Why did they do that? They did that because, okay, the roads were probably not passable. Airports were not there, were not constructed yet. So they used the railway to transfer especially heavy loads, bulk and bulk of agricultural produce. Now we have railways, those old railways that were built then, but we also have constructed new railways in our countries. And I'm happy, and I know I'll find the knowledge later on and share that the railway is intending to join all the East African countries. But again, if we look onto the railway is another luxury means of living, we don't anymore travel in buses, we travel in rail and trains, etc. Then we're missing the gist of using the railway to support businesses from our not very well developed roads. Okay. So infrastructure is again critical. But again, when you look onto infrastructure, there are many other aspects that come into play, not only roads infrastructure, rail infrastructure, etc., but the entire business systems. Okay. The entire business systems, because businesses support businesses and it's not any other way. It's not any other way around. Businesses support businesses and they have to go. So looking onto the entire infrastructure, the business infrastructure in a given economy, it really needs to communicate with each other. Okay. You have, for instance, a very good road network or railway or airports, airlines, etc. But handling is not very good. Okay. We do not have proper storage facilities. Now, when you don't have proper storage facilities, what it is that you have, post-harvest losses, lots of post-harvest losses. And if my figures are correct in Tanzania, I think post-harvest losses goes to up to 45%, if my figures are correct. This number needs to be verified. But when you have a country that has such a huge number of post-harvest losses, that means close to 50% of everything that is harvested goes into waste. Now, businesses again will not be able to grow. Businesses, imagine if that 50% was sold, only 10% maybe went on to losses and 40% is sold. That is huge return to the farmers. Okay. Looking on to, again, regulatory hurdles. The restrictions that we put onto businesses, onto SMEs, the restrictions that we put onto SMEs, why do we put those restrictions? Why should we have those restrictions? For who? If you want to see a child learn to walk, run, fly where they can, why would you stop them from practicing walking? Okay, you would want to encourage them, put support left, right, and center. You see them now standing up, making them walk the first step and then the second step, and they move on. But imagine a child wanting now to walk, and they want to walk and then run. And then you are creating obstacles for that child to be able to walk and then eventually run. How will they be able to do that? So think of a business like a child that needs to grow, that needs to walk and then run. We want to see them, we want to support them so that they're able to run and walk. Think about the 90% of women and youth of jobs that are created by SMEs. Why wouldn't you want to invest heavily into the sector? And here I'm talking about those in authorities, those who are, decision making, who have decision making powers and roles. We want to grow Africa, we want to grow economies. But what support in your respective role do you give to the growth of the SMEs? Are we the ones saying that banks should have the largest interest rates because of risks we give to businesses? What if they don't return? Or are we the one to say that we need to support businesses by reducing the interest rate so that businesses can borrow from our banks to go and grow their businesses? So we need really to come as Africa through this 10th episode, a polite reminder that yes, it's doable, yes, it can be done. And then do it. Do it. Put up the infrastructure, put up the systems in place that would really facilitate businesses to grow. How do we support the value chains in respective products or services? Value chains. So, for instance, agricultural value chains, how do we ensure seeds and agri inputs are available? How do we ensure irrigations are in place or people are able to come and invest in irrigation systems? How do we ensure harvesting? How do we ensure we reduce post-harvest losses? How do we ensure processing, semi-processing or processing of finished products? How do we ensure movements of finished products either to the markets or as they act as other sources of raw materials to other industries? How do we ensure shipment, movement of products from one country to the other? Again, these are markets. The entire value chain. Okay. I know we heard from Alan from Uganda recently that heads of state convened to discuss the best ways where um, produce in Africa should not be sold as raw, but we add value, we process them ready for the markets. How do we ensure that those discussions that and some of these things are even researched in our offices. How do we make sure that these good researches, these good discussions, deliberations really hit the roads and see SME sector grows? Wake Up Africa is calling us to reflect and to ponder, you know, if the challenge is in the formalization of businesses, how do we encourage businesses to formalize? You know, how do we make sure that we create an environment where businesses easily, excuse me, and freely and seamlessly move, grow, flow, offer services, offer products? When we see businesses, and people start very humbly in SMEs, this is why we have from the micros to small and medium, they start very humbly. Someone goes with a very small capital to buy groundnuts and they roast them and start selling them and then put a small margin onto that. And through that margin, they're able to now support their families and then add up to their capital. But again, when we see them, we from the regulatory hurdles, we jump onto them with the little effort that they've put to support their family and the businesses, to put money in circulation. We stop them. We tell them, no, you've not registered. No, you're not allowed to be here. No, you've not formalized. No, give me this license. Give me that, show me that license. Where are your tax certificates, etc.? Micro businesses in Africa. We put regulations that really aim maybe to help us collect taxes. But again, if a lot of money is in circulation, what does that mean? If a lot of money is in circulation, that simply means that more and more people are able now to do more in their businesses. They're able to do more in their businesses. Now, if they're able to do more, you'll be able to collect more from every second that money passes from one hand onto the other. Why don't we support so we get more money? If we impose tax on a business person, yes, we collect that tax. Yes, it's an assurance we have the money. Well and good. But imagine every transaction, every monetary transaction gives you that extra money. Why wouldn't you want money to be out there in circulation? You see, this is what I mean, that we put stringent regulatory systems in place. For what? How do we grow our businesses? How do we grow SMEs? How do we ensure that the jobs that are not created either in the private sector or in the public sectors are absorbed by the SMEs, so that more and more jobs are created, more and more people employed, much more money is in circulation, and you, as governments, you collect your taxes. My recent visit to Rwanda, again, I really commend, and I've seen the same case in Kenya, whereby, just money is out of circulation. They tend to pay by mobile phones, applications, etc., which is very well, or your credit card. What does that mean? When you pay through a certain system, that means you're able to now put that 0.01% of that transaction onto taxes, anything levy, etc. Vis-a-vis, I have my 500 here, I go buy a donut outside, and the donut man pays 500 to buy water, or flour to make more donuts. It's little. And that shopkeeper that sells the flour or the water does not, remit taxes here and there. Now, when we help businesses, now looking onto the infrastructure, when we think broadly onto the entire infrastructure, then we're now able to do more. We're now able to earn more, other than limiting our thoughts and thinking only into taxes. Now, in order for us to be able to collect taxes, let's put this regulation here, let's put that regulation there. Businesses do not grow like that. And in fact, I think, and I remain to be corrected, I should have done a lot more homework. It's been a long week, it's been a busy week, but I think it's Mauritius, whereby when you want to start a business, they give you capital, they give you, tax holiday, they give you, days off. If you're employed, they give you a sabbatical, a leave without pay. I don't know if they pay or they do not pay. But if businesses don't go as you had anticipated, they reinstate you back onto your position. Why can't we all do like that? And for me, oftentimes I wonder that, we bring investors into the country, and we do that very well, tremendously well. And we give them 5 years, 10 years of tax holidays. But Africans, and allow me here to bring on to my late president, John Pombe Magufuli, who used to say, we know our problems very well to address them, and not someone from outside Africa. If this is true, why don't we then put it in place to encourage more locals to invest into the economy, because they know this economy very well? If you ask me what then stringent measures we need to put, I would say, look onto the banks and just push the banks to give more credit to SMEs. What would it take? Push more SMEs to acquire financially. Okay, so if today we make an announcement that we want to give credit to SMEs on one condition, you go through this course and you make sure you qualify through this course, or you go through this process and you make sure that you're good at this process. We give you 3 months trial so that we are able to monitor your cash flows, your income, your expenditure, your business. And then from that trend, we'll now be able to say now, voila, you've qualified. And from your business, we've seen that, you transact within the range of 200,000 and 500,000. Here is 400,000. Go do your business. We'll still be monitoring you. Business is done. Okay, it can be done. I was telling my class the other day that success begins in the mind before it shows out in real life. If we really want to succeed in helping the SME to grow, move from one point to the other, one direction to the other, and that direction should only be up. We really need to, have it in our heart and mind that we want them to grow. Why do we want SMEs to grow? Because 90%, my figures say SMEs are the backbone of the African economy, accounting for over 90% of businesses and employing a significant portion of the workforce, including women and youth. SMEs. Why do we want them to grow? Because they account for over 90% of businesses. Now, 90% of businesses, 90% of businesses that are counted here, assuming that the 90% of businesses contribute to 70% of the GDP, why wouldn't you carry that like a golden child? Or a goose that lays golden eggs? Protect it because the next morning you wake up, there's a golden egg. SMEs account for over 90% of businesses, employing a significant portion of the workforce, including women and youth. Not to mention that the youth are the future. The youth are what we need today and tomorrow. These are the ones who are coming to run the economy. These are the ones that are coming to run the countries. These are the ones that are coming to protect our borders. These are the ones that are coming to engage in mining so that we're able to have alternative sources of income and grow our economies. These are the future leaders tomorrow, but also today. Now, if we do not support them to grow and grow their businesses, what then do they do in the opposite, in the contrary? They stay at home. The government has to feed them. They engage in malpractices. They get into drugs. They get into, breaking houses and offices and banks, stealing, robbery. Okay. Do we want to raise communities in Africa that have that kind of setups and people? Now, in order to avoid such, imagine it's just a decision. Lower the interest rate, put SMEs into a certain program, they acquire certain knowledge, we start seeing them taking off slowly and gradually. Yes, they do not have collateral. How can you help their businesses to be collateral themselves? I have a huge piece of land. I want to build houses. I want to build houses for business. Airbnb is a booming business. Now, I'm thinking as a banker, if I give this money to this gentleman, probably does not have the financial literacy to make me comfortable to give him money. If I give him money and they do not have his financials, he does not even know how to run this business. Why don't we as banks, now banks correct me where I go wrong, sit with this person and say, okay, so you have land, this is the title deed you've probably inherited from your late parents, grandparents. This is what you want to do. So we'll help you do this. We'll also hire you a manager. This manager will run this show for you up until we've gotten back our money. Then you can decide what you want to do. But as they do that, you can also take time to learn how they do the business. And the banks will not take 100%, they will take a certain percent, and you keep certain percent to be able to sustain yourself. So voila, Let's do this. Africa, we can change our narratives. And one of the best ways to change our narrative is to really think critically and think positively and think, you know, that yes, we can and we're able to do that. This person has come to us, he has or she has land and they want to do Airbnb. We know someone who does not have money, does not have land, but they have management of properties experience. Banks should be bridges. And from my findings, the first factor that came out and as to why SMEs do not migrate micro to small, small to medium was finance. Now, banks with finances are bridges. You have land, here's the title deed, you've authenticated, all is clean. Okay, so this is how it's going to be. We're going to build you houses, do the business you want to do. But on top of this, we'll put one person here from the returns of the rent. They'll be paying this person, but from the returns, we'll also be deducting our interests from the loan we've given you. And from the returns, you also have 10%, 20%. We keep 80%, we keep 70, 60, up until when we've recovered our loan and interest. And then the show is yours. But as we do this, we want you to also be part of this business. But as part of this business, you will not have the decision-making power onto this business so that your decision may not interfere in the process. But after a certain period of time, when we've recovered our money, you have 100% ownership of that business. Now, you've built businesses, you've created employment, you have offered services, etc., but you have empowered this person. One, from that business, two, from the skills. Banks, finances, it can be done as long as we believe it can be done. Infrastructure comes from looking onto the business, not from within what we call a Pandoran box, but from outside. Open up that box and look onto where do I come in and support this business? Where do I come in and support this value chain? So I was talking to a bunch of entrepreneurs the other day, whereby businesses in most of our economies, if someone opens a boutique, then another person opens a boutique next door, and you find 10, 20 shops on the same line with boutiques. What if now we think critically now, if someone opens up a boutique here, let me open up something that would complement this business. A salon, for instance. Why don't I open up so that whoever comes to the boutique, they spend time, a car washing vending there. So when they want to go into this boutique to look for goods to buy, they can have their car washed here, or they can have their hair done here so that they dress up, get their hair done, go to events, etc. Businesses that complement businesses. Thinking out loud, infrastructure, systems, which again goes hand in hand closely with the regulatory hurdles. We put stringent regulations to our SMEs, not regarding the fact that 90% of businesses in Africa are SMEs. And then we wonder, why don't our economies grow? It's the question that I would really wish us to ask and ponder onto ourselves. In my position, whatever role you play, what it is that you do that supports businesses in Africa. And then when you have a response to that, we're in business. When you have a response to that, this is what I say. When you have a response to that, what do I do in my capacity? you truly now want to see the SME sector grow. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to meet with the Ugandan ambassador to Tanzania, great gentleman, Ambassador Fred Mwesige. And in our discussion, we spoke about how, trade exchanges can influence Tanzania and Uganda businesses to grow. And Ambassador was speaking of all the opportunities that are available in Uganda in relation to what can actually be found in Tanzania. And I couldn't stop but wonder, this rich information, if it doesn't go out, then what? The embassy is organizing a trade mission to Uganda. They want to bring Tanzanians to Uganda to look onto their manufacturing sector, to look onto their agricultural sector, the opportunities that exist, and see if businesses in Tanzania can match make with businesses in Uganda and support growth. I'm wondering, as I said earlier on when I started, that the governments are doing pretty much. We have the regional blocks. We have the EAC, we have the SADC, AU, we have the Western Bloc. On top of all that, we have the one that brings the entire African continent together, the African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, I will get someone to speak about this in the next episodes, but as long as you're trading your products under African Continental Free Trade Area, they can easily and freely move from one country to the other in Africa. And again, as I commended the heads of states from the East African region bloc, putting up the railway that will connect all these countries, we should really be able to leverage and see how best these two can support each other. Now, what needs to be done? What ought to be done? Okay, a lot yet needs to be done in Africa. So businesses need to see opportunities. Businesses need to complement each other. Look onto different value chains and ask yourself, what do I contribute from this? How do I come in? How do I support this? From here, then you'll be able now to see banks coming to support you. But again, banks, I'm going to go one-on-one with you. We had once Tanzania Bankers Association joining us onto the Wake Up Africa. And they did speak. We had a lady from CRDB Bank, one of the largest banks in Tanzania, and she spoke about all the great stuff that they do as a bank. They incubate businesses and all that. If it is, which I want to believe is a very good practice, why don't we then cascade it? Why doesn't the country see this as a best practice and ensure that all other banks do the same? When you have 90% of businesses being supported by SMEs, 90%, and if these 90% businesses fully contribute, even if it's a fraction of a contribution to your GDP, that is a tremendous amount of income for any given African government. What do we do with our authorities? What do we do with the decisions that we have to make? How do we ensure that policies are friendly to SMEs? And here, I do not say that we do not give focus to FDIs, foreign direct investments in our countries. We do not give focus to other large investors within and outside. If over 90% of African businesses are owned by SMEs, that means less than 10% are owned by those large businesses. So where do you weigh? Where do you want to weigh? And I'm thinking out of my head right now that whether experts tell you 90% it's going to rain, 10% it will not rain, would you take a chance of carrying an umbrella or not? 90%, over 90% it is going to rain today. And you say, oh, so it's 90%. So let me take the 10% chances that it won't rain and leave my umbrella. SMEs, youth and women. How do we prepare the current generation to take over the businesses, to take over the economy for Africa and drive Africa's economy tomorrow if we do not support and capacitate them today? Wake Up Africa, 10th episode, businesses in Africa. Micro to small, small to medium, they need resources. But where the resources are, my dear central banks and central bankers, is where you impose high interest rates on loans, is where you impose collaterals that most, if not all, SMEs do not have, is where you impose bank statements. And I'm wondering, again, in most African economies, and allow me to use my country as an example, and I remain corrected. I should have done a lot of homework on this topic. But where we have less than 20% of people banking, that means over 80% of people do not keep their money in the banks. If over 80% of people do not put their money in the bank, and over 90% of people are SMEs, what does that say? That there's absolutely no way SMEs can provide you financial statements, because we only have 20% of people accessing or have bank accounts. 90% of the population in Africa is taken by, over 90% is taken by SMEs, or businesses that are owned by small and medium entrepreneurs. And then, as a prerequisite to acquiring a loan or a facility, it's a bank statement, but they don't have bank accounts. Their businesses, they make money here, they buy new stock. From buying new stock, they put it in the shops, they sell, they go add more stock. So this simply means that they can't provide you with your requirements from the regulatory hurdles that you require, or requirements for them to be able to access the finances. Now, if the banks keep their money in the banks, if the money is not in circulation, what business growth are we looking at? And for me, it is riskier to give a lot of money, me personally, to a couple of businesses, because if they go bad, that is what you've lost. But if we give to more people, the chances that all 90% of businesses or SMEs will default is very minimal. Less than 10 is very high. A lot of research needs to go on to this, Africa, and we really need to think critically onto how then we can support businesses to grow. This is Wake Up Africa, coming to you live all the way from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. I'm your host, Austin Makani, and delighted to bring this topic to you. And as I bring this topic to you, I want us to really ponder that 90%, over 90% chances it's going to rain today, and you with your, you know, mightiness, you are saying that I'm leaving the umbrella back because I have less than 10% chances that it won't rain. These are chances that we need to put onto the SMEs. Now, SMEs are the economic engine for Africa. I did mention this earlier on that they're the economy, they drive the economy, they're the engine of the economy in Africa. Now, looking onto the African continent, Mother Africa, beautiful African continent, which we come together Saturday morning to ponder onto how the narratives can change and what it takes for us to really rewrite Africa's narrative. Agriculture being, you know, it was structured that way. If I'm thinking out loudly that the technology had advanced so much back during the colonial era, instead of agriculture, the colonialists would have, invested heavily into mining. Probably Africa could have been regarded now as a mining continent, which should have, by the way, because we have everything. We have gold, rare earth, diamonds. My own town, village where I come from, the region where I come from, there's beautiful diamonds, probably the best in the world. But is it enough just to say that? No. But agriculture, where most people are employed in that entire value chain of agriculture. Um, how do we ensure that the value chains, that the businesses in agriculture speak to each other, communicate to each other? We know that most of our agriculture is rain fed. Why don't we invest into irrigation as countries? And I'm happy, I can't really recall, was it Rwanda or Zimbabwe? Again, me not having done my homework properly, that, after the Russia Ukraine war started, and then we had less supply of wheat in Africa, and looking onto all these businesses along the road selling donuts and all this good food of wheat, chapatis, my favorite. Then the president of either Rwanda or Zimbabwe said, what does it take for our country to cultivate wheat that we have to import? And now that the countries have gone into war, we can't import. And then said, if this is what it takes, we need land, we need this and that, let's put money onto ensuring that this kicks off. And there they do not need to import wheat anymore. Why do we then have to wait up until COVID strikes for us to say this and that? Why do we have to wait until the war strikes for us to come up with such beautiful decisions? And it's interesting that we produce almost every raw material in the world. They go out there, they come back to us as finished goods. That means every single penny that we make out of these businesses, selling the raw materials to them, we spend it by creating markets for them. We had a coffee summit recently, and one of the biggest questions we were asking ourselves was South Africa, in Africa, being Wake Up Africa, is one of the largest consumers of coffee in the world. South Africa. But 0% of its coffee comes from within Africa. Yet, Africa contributes, if I remember my numbers very well, over, gosh, man, I can't remember if it's 55, but allow me to say over 30% of global coffee is coming from Africa. one of the largest consumers, is in Africa. So we convened in that coffee summit to say that we need to sell coffee in Africa. Africans need to buy coffee from Africa. Good take. So by supporting African businesses, my dear viewers of Wake Up Africa, today, Saturday, the 15th of March, 2025, as we're looking onto what it is that needs to happen to the SMEs to really be the SME, to really be the 90% of the GDP, is really to support these businesses grow. The more they grow, the more there's circulation, the more there's SMEs in our economies, the more the jobs are created, the more the burden is lessened for the government to look onto hungry mouth, left, right, and center. Think about that SME you push very hard onto the taxes, onto the fees they have to pay. And then since they can't meet those regulations, they have to close down. Think about those who would lose their jobs. Think about those families that depended on that income. Think about the landlord who was making money from that business, renting that place out. And that landlord needed that money to support other businesses or family or anything else. Probably a sick person that needed that money to be treated. Think about, I can go on and on and on and on. Think about those who are impacted by you simply pushing out one business person who has hired another business person, and together they offer service that we all need. Think about those who are selling clothes in the street. I wouldn't say they're selling clothes, they're selling convenience. For most of us who do not probably have time to go to the supermarkets that are at a distant place. So they sell good shirts, good quality shirts. They could be secondhand. Yeah. But think about those kinamamas or mothers in the streets who are selling handmade crafts, beautiful products, and then you come to them and you just break their tables, telling them you're not allowed to sit here, you do not have business licenses. And some of them are even carrying their children on their back. And they can even cry and tell you, from this business, I'm feeding my children. From this business, I'm able to send a little penny to my parents or grandparents in the village. But then all you say is, we need to see your business license. I'm not saying that business licenses should not be imposed. They should. But how have you enabled, helped that business to acquire a business license? What incentives have you given? Because yes, we can give them incentives. Okay, mom, we give you 3 months. It only takes certain amount of money from your business for you to acquire a business license to formalize your business. We give you 3 months, we give you 6 months, we give you 1 year. Go and acquire that. We take your records. Luckily, in Tanzania, again, the country where I am, proudly to be Tanzanian, we have the national identification IDs. So we've taken your ID, so we give you 365 days to make sure, mom, that you get the business license. It's in record, it's in the system, so anyone else will not bug you within the next 365 days. But please make sure within the 365 days, 1 year, you've acquired this business license. We'll leave you for now. Fellow Tanzanian, fellow Africans supporting African businesses to grow. I think there was a clip that was circulating in one of the Asian countries whereby policemen or those, I think those responsible for regulations were passing by the streets and seeing businesses, they're laid down on the streets, veggies, etc. And they're helping them to, observe that you're on the roadside. Please move a couple of meters back. This is risk here for you. How much is this? Buy from them, supporting those businesses. It was such a fantastic video. And I was asking myself, why is it that we can't really go down to those roots and say that, yes, we can support businesses by doing such and such? Tell them, please move, because we know you're supporting families, you're supporting yourself, you're building the economy because the money you're making moves into the circulation. But this place is risky for you. You see, there's electricity here. Just move a couple of inches away. So it can be done, Africa. And I'm sure from Wake Up Africa, the 10th episode, as we're growing stronger, bigger, bolder every day, we should make deliberations to saying that, yes, let's go back onto the drawing board and see how we can support SMEs. Because why we're supporting SMEs? Because not only that they're the backbone, but 90% of businesses in Africa are SMEs. More than 90%. I'm looking onto job creation. I'm looking onto services that they render. You don't just start a business for the sake of starting a business. You start a business because there's a demand for a certain good or service, and you're there now to offer that good or service. What does that mean? You're offering that good or service for other people in exchange of money. You either go buy more good or you pay for other goods and services that you need. You probably want to pay for food, probably want to pay for the shelter, the house you live in, probably want to pay for clothing, basic needs, basic human needs. You want to see your kids go to school, good schools, etc. So a lot needs to be done, and it can be done. It's just a decision that you and me ought to make today, that I want to support these businesses to grow. And again, some of us might be thinking of support in monetary terms. No, some support could be from the guidance you give to the small and medium businesses. From the support, it could be also from buying from them. So last weekend on the 15th, on the 8th, when we had the International Women's Day, I did leave by saying I was going to an event that was organized by the Moroccan Embassy in Tanzania. Brought about 60 SMEs under one roof, selling beautiful products. And, I was given the honor to run that show. And I did say to the ambassadors and everyone that came to that event that don't just smile and say this product is beautiful. Yes, they need that motivation to be producing beautiful products. But what they need the most is that support you now extend by purchasing their products. I'm still paying for the products that I bought that day. Paying in the sense that, they gave me on credit and I'm paying them. They remind me, bro, you took this from me, your apologies, here's your money, etc. Because the system was done that Saturday. And I commend all the beautiful women who are doing beautiful and amazing work. All the young people are doing, very hard work to sing ends meet. Let us support them. They're in our streets, they're in our traffic lights. They sell bananas. They sell avocados, fruits. You do not need to wait for the doctor to tell you to eat fruits. Support them. They don't need much. Yes, there are issues of hygiene. Yes, there's a way that you can make sure that before you use them, you treat them, you wash them and eat them. Banana, cut the top tip. And you've supported that person, you've supported that business, you've supported the SME, because they do not have farms, but they're supporting farmers out there who come to look for markets. So look onto, if I do not buy from this street vendor, that means a lot more people behind him are impacted by your action. Wake Up Africa. Over 90% of businesses in Africa are small and medium enterprises, small and medium businesses. But yet, finance, infrastructure, regulations hinder them from growing, hinder them from reaching their maximum potential. If you ask big businesses that we're proud today, any big business, they did not start big, they started small. They started in their locality, they started in their region, in their country before they went out. How are we able to see businesses grow that way by if we're not giving them the necessary support they need to go that way? So Wake Up Africa today, as we rewrite Africa's narrative, calls all of us to really think, what is it at my capacity am doing to really support SMEs to grow? We attend workshops, seminars, dialogues. Do we even speak for SMEs? Do we speak for them? Now that you know, I know, as we are rewriting Africa's narrative, we are going to do that. The SMEs, by and large, from the products and services that they bring to the industry, and again, am requesting us to look onto the entire value chain that they bring into place. Think about how and why their contribution is significant from the various sectors that they're in. From the various sectors that they're in. Agriculture, manufacturing, you name this, you name that. What do we want? What else do we want? By opting, and I like if Alan was to join us today, I would have asked her yet again to remind me of the greatest campaign that they have, Buy Uganda, Boo, Buy Uganda, Build Uganda. Yes, Boo, I've recalled it. Very good. So that campaign in Uganda was simply, promoting people in Uganda to buy Ugandan products. And by doing so, they would be building Uganda because, the money remains in their circulation, the businesses grow, etc. The moment you buy a foreign product, even if you buy it locally, that person went outside the country, outside the continent to buy that product. What does that mean? That person took capital to that country, came up with the product, and you are buying that product, you are refunding him. That means you're supporting that foreign company out there by purchasing foreign products. Countries like China, and I'm mesmerized by the fact that, they have their own mobile phones, they have their own applications, etc. What does that tell you? That simply tells you or informs that they support their own local businesses. And by doing that, they grow their businesses. And Uganda now brought that in. Buy Uganda, build Uganda. Okay? So when that happens, what does that really now tell us? That simply reminds us that by doing so, we are supporting businesses, we are supporting the value chains. Now, when we are not doing that, that means we're also killing our businesses. We are killing our SMEs. We are killing our economy. Think about it and think about it very critically. Okay? So the central contributions of SMEs is significant. Okay, someone could just be, carrying from fruits producing regions to the markets in the urban and in the cities. That is way, way finer. How do we support this person to be able to do that? When they come to us, do we stop them from moving their product through us, those with the transportation services? So we become the roadblocks, we become the walls, the barrier to seeing that businesses grow. Wake up, Africa. Again, if 90% governments, if 90% of businesses in Africa are owned by SMEs, why can't we think of even tapping 40, 50, 60, 70% of these businesses to contributing to GDP? Why can't we? It can be done. This is Wake Up Africa. We want to change Africa's narrative, but how do we change Africa's narrative if our thinking is it can't be done? We've got to stand bold as a continent and say, no, no, no. Buy Africa, build Africa. Baba, buy Africa, build Africa. Thank you, Uganda, for bringing this beautiful concept in place. Buy Uganda, build Uganda, buy Africa, build Africa. South Africa, if you only buy coffee from countries producing coffees in Africa, including Tanzania, Rwanda, I can remember there were like 7 countries that were there. Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, fantastic, from the region, from within Africa. Buy Africa, build Africa. Now, coffee is produced in Africa, shipped abroad, comes back to South Africa and other African countries as finished products, and we consume. Now, I'm sure the question would be by doing that, aren't we really supporting African businesses? And my answer would straight be no. Why? Because when we sell coffee as raw, they buy them in low prices. They go there, they process them, they package them and brand them and bring them back as premium products, and they sell to us. Now, the margin between what they acquire from us to what they bring to us is so significant, and less than, I can't remember that number, but a very small percentage of the coffee industry revenue that makes comes back to the farmers. Are we supporting farmers? No, we are not. Now, the coffee meeting that we had said businesses, the likes of the African Development Banks, our very own banks in Africa, should really see how can we support factories in Africa to be able to produce the coffee that is consumed in South Africa. How can we help businesses in Africa, farmers in Africa, to be able to supply good coffee, which is already very good. And luckily for us in Africa, almost everything is organic. Good coffee to hit world markets. If you were to ask me, yes, to this I would say, let's go ahead. Well, we buy raw from farmers, take it abroad, gets processed, packaged, branded, and sold back to us. And we say, yeah, I supported the farmer by buying. No, you did not support any farmer. Think of the margin. I'll not be able to give you the number. I'll be happy to give you the number if you ask me. But think of the margin. Wake up, Africa. Let's rewrite Africa's narrative, because we can, because we want and because we are able to. As you're looking onto the SMEs growth, as you're looking onto businesses growth in Africa, as you're looking onto businesses growth to support the women and the youth who are the face of Africa tomorrow, we really need to support SMEs. Really need to support SMEs. We are not going back to saying anything else. Let's support military. Let's support aviation. Let's support science and technology. Let's support SMEs. No matter how many people graduate from institutions, no matter how many of them graduate from our institutions, if we are not able to, if we are not able to absorb them into starting businesses, it's a failure. Businesses don't operate like that. Finance, banks are called to you. Central banks in Africa, it's a call to you. Again, and I remain guided. And luckily, I'm happy that I have the banking experience that if we want to give loans, our conditions should not be collateral. Our conditions should be you come to any of our branches and we take you through 3 months to see you and your business conduct for 3 months. After that, we will be able now to ascertain the amount of money you need so that we are able now to give you that amount of money as we monitor you and we monitor your business so that we have our returns. SMEs will grow. I have a piece of land. That is my collateral. Now, I do not have housing experience, management of business, etc. But I know my plot is next to a university, for instance. And there's a huge demand for hostels at that university. Students are looking for hostels. Now, I come to you as a bank to look onto not my piece of land, but that business idea. We put a hostel there because there's absolutely no way I want money to put up a hostel and you tell me we'll give you money that is only enough to put a foundation. So we put that hostel there. You put yourself as bankers, recruit a manager who will again be paid by the income that is generated from this business. You give me a time slot where these businesses will run up until you've acquired back your money with interest, and this gentleman still gets their salary. And I, working closely with this person, do not have the say, okay, do not have the mandate, okay, but get to learn how to run this business. On top of that, 60, 70, 80% comes to you and the business runner. And I get that 10% or 20% for a given period of time. And after that, I continue to run this business myself, owning 100% because I have paid back the entire loan back to you. And through that property now, I can collateralize that property now that I have books, now that I know how to keep details, account details, now that I have a business, now that I have a property, I collateralize that and open up another hostel for an overflow and open up another business because I have something that supports that. Do we see that as businesses supporting businesses to support SMEs to grow, my dear fellow bankers, my dear fellow policymakers? It can be done as long as we decide. It can be done as long as we see to it that, yes, it can be done. As long as we impose in our heads, no, it can't be done. Austin, it's easier said than done. Let's try it. Again, CRDB is attempting. I would really be happy one of these days to really pick the CEO's mind and say, how is that going? And if other banks can imitate what you're doing, if this can be documented, passed through the institutions to be researched so that it can be passed, cascaded to other banks, not only in Tanzania, but across Africa. If Buy Uganda, Build Uganda can, bring Buy Africa, Build Africa, why not? We push SMEs to comply to certain rules and regulations more than to certain standards. In China, a country I've not been to, but I'm sure, God willing, inshallah, this year I'll visit China. Looking forward to that. You have products of different grades. You have first class, second class, third class, and each with its own unique pricing. If we are to impose certain regulations or certain standards, we can as well as borrow these examples. You want cheap products? These are the standards for cheap products because this is what you can afford. If you want medium products, this is the standard for a medium product. This is, price guidance, etc. if need be, because prices come from so many factors, many costs, etc. If you want superior product, these are the standards. And superior products to superior markets, medium markets, cheaper products, cheaper markets. Markets are very price sensitive. I was talking to someone about this yesterday, when we were having a discussion with Ambassador Fred of the Republic of Uganda to Tanzania, that our regional markets are very price sensitive. But instead of really focusing more onto complying to certain standards, rules, and regulations, let's give them guidance to their fair playing grounds, SMEs fair playing grounds. I did give an example earlier on, inspired, and I'm happy to repeat this, that since you have a business card, an identity card, which is, in the system, wherever you go, they're able to, log in and see, yeah, this is your ID, NIDA, National Identification Card. So if on that card, you've stipulated you're a business person and it shows that we have given you 1 year to comply to a certain regulation like a business license. And within the 365 days, this person struggles, works hard to make that extra money to go and pay for that business license. And within that year, that person is not bugged by those people just come, jump onto their businesses, kick their pots, etc. We should be able to really encourage businesses to come in, create employment, and just thrive. Give them time to look for money to comply. I see them. I live in the streets. I see them struggle. I see when the city councils pass by the streets. Not only in my country, I've seen them in different parts of Africa, countries that I've visited. When the city council passes, they run left, right, and center like an atomic bomb has been dropped. So they run for their lives. Why? Because that little business that they have, they don't want to lose it. Why? Because they have business, they have families, they have food to eat, they have, again, I really don't like this example, but they have someone that they need to take care of, buy medicine for them or for themselves. They have children to take to school. They have families to take food to at the end of the day. They have, rent to pay. Most do not own houses, we all know. But here we are. We frustrate SMEs, hoping that our businesses, our countries, our economies, our GDPs will grow. They will not grow. I'm speaking to you, Africa. Who are we doing whatever we are doing for? You have your blue collar job, etc. You are mandated to do what you do well and good. But this also, SMEs are looking for survival means to, means to just survive in the harsh environment. You are in your office. You do not know rainfall. You do not know sunshine, probably from the view like I have. They're in the streets, come rain, come sunshine. The dust, the risk, accidents, someone can just go off road and knock them off and die, leave their families wondering, why is mommy not coming back today? Why is daddy not returning home? 2, 3 days later, you're told, oh, it was an accident, we've lost him. As they were looking for money to take back to their families. Africa, we're not doing this for anyone. There's nowhere you can go and say, I'm going home other than Africa. You can't say anywhere outside Africa that I'm home. Even if they give you the green card, even if they give you residence, this is your home. Now, if this is your home, how can I then make it sink into your head that we need to make our home homey, habitable, friendly to us, to ourselves, to our businesses, to our people, those who are less advantaged, so that they feel at home, they know they belong. When someone kicks you off the streets where you wanted to go and make that little penny for that little sick child, for that little penny for that sick grandmother or parent, or just to buy a bread for yourself. I'm looking on to the people who wash cars in the streets. The little money that we give them to wash our cars cannot sometimes even afford a single meal for a day. But yet they give us a service we need. And then these very same people that, struggle to make their ends meet are the ones that we frustrate, we kick them out of our streets. Wake up, Africa, because Africa is way better than that. So for me, really, as I come to the end of Wake Up Africa, this 15th of March 2025, the 10th episode, we were looking on to how and why we really need to support SMEs in Africa. We really need to consider um, supporting businesses. We really need to consider having the circulation of money within the SMEs so that we are able to tap onto the over 90% of their businesses into our GDP and grow our economies. We really need to consider our financial policies and how they can actually now provide solutions to the SMEs and not hardships. When you bring a pile of papers like this to someone who just wants 200,000 shillings, that is less than $1, less than $100. Yeah. You give him a pile of papers like this to fill up. What is it that we are telling this? And at this juncture, I would also like to really commend the mobile phones. I think banks have a lot to learn from the mobile phone. So in Tanzania, the network that I use is Vodacom, and they have what they call Songesha. Depending on how you transact through your M-Pesa, they are now able to put a threshold of an amount for you to loan from your phone. And then when you put money back onto your M-Pesa, it deducts that amount of money. I've never gone into the details if there's an interest or not, but yeah, they do that. Then why would I want to put my money in the bank? Why wouldn't I want to transact through my phone so that my mobile network provider can continue to trust me and give me more money and give me more money and give me more money so that I'm able to do more business and more business and more business. Banks, open up your eyes and see this. So, finance, infrastructure, regulations. We really need to bring this monster down. We really need to come humble and say, yes, we want to support SMEs. Yes, we want to tap onto the 90% of their businesses, even if we do 10%, even if we do 20 of that, 30 of that, 40 of that. It's more voluminous than the less than 90%, which is the less than 10% that is left onto big businesses out there that comes into our banks. We give them all the money. Something happens, you've lost it. The whole economy shakes. But if you give a little amount of money to many more people like that, if this one defaults, this one is there to give you back, to support you, but we're not looking onto the default rate. It is there. Risk, this is why we impose interest. Yeah. But we really need to think about what it is that we ask businesses for them to access our loans, collateral. And it's interesting, someone will just tell you, bring a collateral of so much value, 2-3 times what you want to borrow. They tell you, bring a whole year, 6 months, 3 months bank statement, but I do not have a bank statement. But I can show you this is my business. Then you say, no, you don't have bank statement, we can't give you a loan. Why don't you tell them that, okay, so we're going to give you a loan down the line on a condition that we observe you for the next 3 months so they populate, they build up that statement you want. And again, back again to CRDB, kudos. I look forward to talking to you once again on this. Who are we doing what we're doing for? This is Wake Up Africa, the 10th episode, looking on to what you and me can do to really support micro businesses to grow to small businesses to grow to medium businesses, and medium businesses to graduate to large businesses. Again, we have a saying that a baobab tree started like a spinach. It started that small. I was once shown a baobab seedling and I was like, this cannot be. You know, when you're seeing its mighty form in nature, this you can't even hug it. You can't even embrace it. Probably takes, 15, 20 people to hold your hands like that, to go around a baobab tree or more. But it started like a spinach. All these big businesses that we see, you can name them, from vehicles to mobile phones to whichever business to computers, everything. They started humbly. The rich people started with one outlet to opening outlets across the world, the franchises that we see. Who do we want to please that we want to start mighty? Who are we competing against? The regulations, the environment needs to remain very stable, and it remains very humble for businesses to grow and thrive in Africa. It cannot be otherwise. It can't be otherwise. So as I conclude, I would like to once again say that SMEs are critical to Africa's economic growth, representing a large portion of businesses and employment. But the challenges that the SMEs face, I've mentioned the 3, there are very many more. You can mention a little bit more. I've mentioned the finance, the infrastructure, and regulations just hinder them from growing, from seeing the success that we would really have appreciated seeing. But again, remain grounded to the fact that SMEs are the backbone of Africa's economy, accounting to over 90% of businesses and employing a significant portion of workforce, including many women and many young people. You really, really, really want to go back to the drawing board and say empowerment to the SMEs, empowerment to the young people, empowerment to the women. Let's empower these businesses so that we are able to tap onto what they're giving us, what they're producing. My dear viewers of Wake Up Africa, as we come to the end of Wake Up Africa this morning, I would really want to take this opportunity to appreciate all of you watching, all of you following. It cannot be any better that we walk the talk of what we're saying. It can't be any better. And if it can't be any better, then let's walk the talk. Let's support SME, because by supporting SME, you're supporting the entire value chain. By supporting SME, you're supporting families, you're supporting businesses, you're supporting those who are able to get up and go work because they know someone out there is working on whatever little that they earn will put a bread on their table. Yes, we can, and we would want to be able to do that. Thank you so much. I would really want to appreciate everyone and who made time to watch, follow, listen. Up until next time, next episode, the 11th episode, I really want to look onto the PR of Africa, the perception of Africa. What does it take to really now, this again goes back onto what grounds Wake Up Africa. What would really now give that shape, that beautiful look of Africa? In the sense that how can we better tell or narrate our stories as Africa in the public relations perspective? I'm your host, Austin Makani. Thank you so much for being with me this morning. Thank you all who came to my inbox saying we are there, we're watching, we're appreciative, there's this, there's that. You had wanted to remain incognito, anonymous. I've respected that. But truly, thank you for your support. Wake Up Africa can only be Wake Up Africa through your support. Thanks to my team, wherever you are. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your support. Thank you for all the people who put this document together that we are speaking about today. And we are one day going to see the Africa we want. We are not going to wait up until 2063 to see the Africa we want, but yes, the Africa we want is already here, is already at our doorsteps, and through supporting the over 90% of the businesses, we are able to go to see the Africa we want in the next couple of minutes. Up until next Saturday, Wake Up Africa wishes you a fantastic weekend, wishes you a great week ahead. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next weekend.